Welcome to season 12 of the Parenting Aces podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and this week we have with us Wofford University men's tennis coach, Rod Ray. You guys are in for such a treat. If you haven't heard of Wofford, I want you to look it up right now. The link is in the show notes on ParentingAces.com. Rod is an incredible coach, an incredible human being, and has an incredible story to share with all of us of his two sons and their journeys, not only in junior tennis, but also in track and field, and how they each found their way into competing at the collegiate level. Rod's younger son plays for him actually at Wofford, which I think is amazing as well. And he will share with us the challenges and how he met the challenges of being both coach and parent. So you guys are in for a real treat. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Coach Rod Ray of Wofford University. Rod, it's so lovely to meet you. So wonderful to have you on the podcast. And I am really excited to chat with you and have you share your wisdom and experience with our audience. So welcome to Parenting Aces.
Well, thank you, Lisa. I've been a fan of your show and I've watched it for years. So I'm delighted to be on the show with you.
Yeah, I'm blushing. I don't know if you can tell. So before we jump in, I really want you to kind of give our audience a little bit of your tennis story, how you got started in the sport and progressed to your current role as the head men's coach at Wofford in South Carolina.
Great. Well, I grew up predominantly in the Atlanta area and played junior tennis and a long time ago. And at that time I played multiple sports, but played junior tennis and high school tennis and played college tennis at East Tennessee State. After college, I went to work in junior development at a club outside of Columbia, South Carolina, and did that for about 10 years. And I'm getting ready to start my 24th season at Wofford College in South Carolina.
That's amazing. And along the way, got married and had two sons.
That's right. Yeah.
Both of whom are athletes, one of whom is a tennis player. So yes. I'd love for you to just give us a little of their story as well. Having two boys, sometimes it can be really tricky to help them find their own passions and not have younger brother just following on the heels of older brother. How did y'all manage that challenge?
Yeah, pretty crazy times. So my children are one will graduate from college. My oldest son will graduate in college in December, and my youngest son will graduate from college in May, and they're 18 months apart. My youngest son, Ashe, plays on our tennis team at Wofford, so he's a rising senior, and he grew up around college tennis. They both grew up around college tennis, but Ashe played a lot of tennis and went through the whole junior tournament process, and so we had a lot of fun doing that, which makes me relevant to Parenting Aces because I've done that, and now he's on our team, and
and not just on your team playing. He played number one for you last year.
He did. He played one for us last year, and played three his freshman year, most of the year, three, and I just picked him up from the airport 2 days ago from Tunisia, where he spent a month kind of trying to play futures tournaments and going through that and having it's an incredible experience in Africa. So he's having a great time, and he's a finance major at Wofford.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And your older son?
Yeah, and then my older son, Cole, goes to Gardner-Webb University, which is less than an hour from here in North Carolina. And he's on the cross country team and at Gardner-Webb, and he'll graduate in December. And he's an English major. Super cool kid. And Cole, as we'll talk a little bit more about, is on the autism spectrum, which is been a really interesting journey for our family.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's so cool that your boys have each found a passion through sports and a way to kind of navigate through their childhood and early adulthood using sports as the vehicle to do that.
Right. So sports are great, right? And I mean that, obviously as a coach, but I coach, but I also work at an academic institution. And so and I want to keep that part really important, that's what a college is really about, right? It's about the academics that way. But we know sports are fantastic and they go hand in hand. Most of the world doesn't have college athletics like the United States has.
Mhm.
But we have it because we believe that it's a really great part of that academic experience, right?
For sure. For sure. And I think, being a college coach yourself and having a child come up through junior tennis, one of the things we were chatting about offline was because you are a college coach and have been through your boys' whole childhoods, you weren't the tennis parent. Your wife was the tennis parent.
Right. So and my wife works full time, and I work full time, plus I have a child with special needs. And so I think, like in Ashe is a he's a good, he's a good player who plays a lot and loves the sport. But it wasn't a given that he would do that. I think it was actually kind of difficult for him to do that.
Hmm.
Um,
Just because of your role in the
yeah,
sport, or
right. Because I wasn't around,
Hmm.
and my wife was had a full-time job, and then we had another son who took and probably took a lot of time and energy.
Sure.
But so although I have a son who plays college tennis and played junior tennis, it was his decision. Obviously, we supported him, and we like all tennis parents, we put a lot of resources towards junior tennis, spent a lot of money and a lot of time and energy on it. But it was fun to see that because it wasn't just handed to him, that he really had to go after it on his own.
Yeah. And I want to dig into Cole's story more, but before we kind of shift gears there, I'm really interested to hear about Ashe's decision to come play at Wofford,
Yeah.
and what was his recruiting experience like?
Right.
Were there other schools that he was considering?
Yeah. So Ashe, like Ashe grew up around Wofford, and I was one of Ashe's coaches. He was lucky to have a lot of people pour into him as coaches. Ashe was recruited by a lot of schools, and ultimately chose Wofford. But he had the opportunity to play at a lot of different schools. Ashe, his junior year, he left Spartanburg, where we left our home, and went to live in an academy in Charleston, South Carolina, about 3 hours away. And I think that probably helped Ashe to be able to choose to play kind of at his home school.
Hmm.
And he just had a great appreciation, not just for me, but for the school itself, and came back to that. Yeah.
We have a lot of people in our Parenting Aces community who wear both a coach hat and a parent hat.
Okay.
I would love to hear how you kept that in perspective. And, when were you coach when you were working with Ashe, and when were you parent?
Right. I coached kids before I had kids. And when I coached kids, I said I would never coach my own children. And then,
Because
well, I think because I said, I only want to be dad. I want to be dad, and I don't want to coach my own kids. But then I think just out of time, out of money, I was I just ended up kind of coaching really both my kids, but gave them a lot of exposure to a lot of other coaches as well. But I think like with Ashe, my tennis playing son, one of the things that helped us was that I did have a child with special needs. And so it was, anything that Ashe did was kind of a bonus. So it wasn't, sports came a lot easier to Ashe than they did to Cole. And so Ashe's life it's just been a little easier than Cole's life. And so it wasn't, whatever Ashe did was just like kind of like icing on the cake. It was so it wasn't a situation where I was ever pushing Ashe. I had a lot of knowledge because I've been around high level tennis. So that piece was pretty easy, but usually it was Ashe saying, it was actually not usually, 100% of the time it was Ashe saying, Dad, when can we train? When can we train? And because of kind of a crazy life situation that I've been given, it was, well, we can train, but it can't be long, or I have to go. I want to spend time with you, but I don't have that much time in that capacity. And we did make a conscious effort when we were at home. We didn't talk about tennis, and we did that also out of respect to my son who didn't play tennis.
Right.
And that was we didn't, obviously we had the tennis champ. I mean, I study tennis. I'm an expert on tennis. I study it like crazy. But around my son who doesn't play tennis, I think I was probably self-conscious about not having it on. So I think at the end of the day, that probably helped Ashe. I didn't do it to help Ashe, but it unintentionally helped Ashe.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's always the challenge, right? Is where do you draw the line when you're coach and when you're dad? And, we always say, don't talk tennis around the dinner table, and,
right.
Be respectful of your child's wishes on the drive home after a tournament,
Right.
and those kinds of things. And it's very difficult. And I would think even more so for somebody who has the breadth of knowledge that you do and the years of experience that you do in the sport, to kind of take a step back, take off that coach hat, take off that tennis hat, and just be dad to both your boys in a more generic way than, all tennis all the time.
So, and I think I've been doing it long enough where my perspective is pretty good in that, why tennis, right? Why junior tennis? Why college tennis? And we know that tennis is really good as a character development tool, as a time management tool, as it's because it's difficult. It's a really good teaching mechanism when it's done right. It goes hand in hand with academics. It goes hand in hand with sportsmanship. It doesn't come before those things. It goes hand in hand with those things. I was telling a young player the other day that, I think it's best to have a team sport and an individual sport, to have both. Tennis being the individual sport, maybe something like basketball being the team sport, and those two go really well together. And then when you get to college, I get the best of both worlds, right? We get the individual and the team. But I think having that perspective, that tennis is a teaching tool. People say, well, why should my child play tennis? To be fun. It's fun, but it's also really difficult. So I'd say it's fun, but more importantly, it's a teaching tool, right?
Right. Well, and there's that statement, you either win or you learn, right? And most tennis players are not winning the majority of the time. There's only one winner at the end of the tournament. Everybody else it's a learning opportunity. And
it's so hard.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about Cole, and I want to talk about how, as a family, you guys have found a way to manage Cole's needs and, well, let me back up a minute. At what age did you realize Cole was on the autism spectrum and
Right.
might need a little extra support?
So I think Cole was probably about 4 years old when he got diagnosed with autism.
How long did that take, though? I mean, did y'all
Yeah.
think something was off before that, and you were
Right.
like trying to figure out what's going on here with our
Right.
kid?
One of the things that makes autism so hard is that it's tricky.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and there is that spectrum.
Right. The saying is, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism.
Yeah.
It's all different. Okay. And just a range of challenges. But so Cole was in school, and a school said, we really can't accommodate Cole. We don't have the resources. So we actually moved to a nearby town for Cole's school. Our family moved 40 miles away to Greenville, South Carolina, for a school that was well suited for Cole. And then things happened. We about ran out of money and moved back to Spartanburg. But those so Cole ended up going to about 9 different schools. He did go to 9 different schools in his 12 years of school. So we left no stone unturned. And my wife and I, like athletes, we went after it and just pursued anything we could to help him, while also trying to support our son, the tennis player. We spent a lot of time and energy trying to uncover and discover what would be best for Cole, and I think it helped. But the neat thing about that is now Cole's 23 and doing really well, and I have great friendships with younger men who have children with special needs, because it is hard. I think if you have a child with special needs, the divorce rate is about 70%. Yeah. So divorce rate's really high for coaches, really high for families with special needs. So I don't know how we did it, but it was difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. And how old was Cole when you realized that sports might be a great outlet for him to pursue, to help him figure out who he was in the world and how he was going to function in the world and all those things?
Right. So at a young age, he did karate, he did swimming, he did triathlons. I mean, so autism is a neurological state. Okay. Mm-hmm. And we know that sports is really good for us neurologically. It's good for us physically, but it's really good for our brain, right? It's right. You feel good when you exercise, and you feel good physically, but you feel good chemically. Your brain feels good. You feel alive. So the more research we did, we learned, my wife Merritt and I learned that physical activity is good for everybody, but it's especially good for people with a neurological challenge. Mm-hmm. Running became, Cole was on the high school cross country team and that sort of thing. But physical activity was really important for his well-being. He did better in school when he was active. But you know what? Everybody does better in school when they're active, right? That's
right. That's right.
I do better in school when I'm active, right? My players do better. I mean, my college tennis players, their GPA is higher than the average student here. And this is a really good academic school. And so we're at our best when we're active, right? When we're healthy and active. And it's hard for people with special needs. But we helped Cole with that a lot.
Do you feel
Um,
like the order inherent in training to be a college athlete was helpful for him too? That I know, I mean, I don't know much about autism, but and I could be completely off base, so correct me if I am, but my understanding is that for some autistic people, that having that sense of order and knowing what's coming next is very important.
yeah,
And being a high level athlete requires planning, scheduling, time management, as you
yeah,
mentioned.
right. So that some discipline, right?
Mhm.
And to be part of a community like Cole had a wonderful high school coach, cross country coach. Um, he's had a wonderful college coach, and but to be part of a team, I bet Cole was, there aren't a lot of people participating in Division I athletics on the autism spectrum. I don't have a number, but I hope that there'll be more in the future. Part of my mission is awareness, right?
Mhm.
And but I give Cole's cross country high school cross country coach. I would do anything for that man. He was really kind and inclusive.
Was
And
it his idea that Cole tried to run in college, or where did that come from?
yeah, no, I mean, Cole wasn't a great high school athlete. He was I mean, he went from probably coming in last most of the meets to coming in average most of the meets. So he wasn't a highly recruited athlete. But as we were looking for colleges, we found a college that had a support center for people with special needs, as Gardner Webb did, and it was really asking the coach if Cole could be on the team. But he's like it's interesting. Wasn't long ago, the Greenville half marathon, Cole came in third in his age group. There were probably 1,000 people in the race, and
Oh my
and Cole
gosh.
came in like 25th out of 1,000 people, which is really good for him.
It's really good for
It's
anybody.
really good for anybody. It's really good for anybody.
Yeah.
And he knows it's really, I mean, so importantly, he knows that it's really good for anybody. And so I've seen through, and but I back up, and I remember watching Cole or cheering for Cole when he came in last, like maybe 40 times,
Mhm.
and but he stuck with it. And so was he good at it at a young age? No. Was he? But does he think he's good at it now? Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And so what that does for a person, right, is incredible, and we see that in tennis. Like if you stick with tennis, you can become a good tennis player if you stick
Sure.
with it. And a lot, you can become pretty good in most things, but you got to stick with it, right?
I've told the story numerous times on this podcast about when my son was in the 14s
Mm.
and he did not win a match for 9 months.
Wow. Yeah.
9 months.
Okay.
And every day I just braced myself for,
Mm.
To pick him up at practice and have him say, "That's it, I'm done."
Yeah.
Or every tournament, I would just brace myself for that announcement that, how kids are. I suck at this. I don't want to do this anymore. It's too
Right.
hard. And to his credit, he didn't do that. He stuck with
Mm.
it. And such that by the time he was in the 16s, he was beating those kids that he was losing to in the 14s. So it goes exactly to your point of, and this is a great segue into the title of your book that you're working on, Hard Comes First,
Mhm.
because I think to get good at anything, unless you're a prodigy, and those are the 0.0001 percenters, right?
Yep.
We're not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about everybody else. You have to put the work in, and you are going to go through those periods where it's really hard
Yeah.
and you're not winning and you're not seeing the results day to day that you're hoping for. But the long-term vision is that by putting in that daily work, eventually things are going to flip-flop and you're going to come out on the other side a stronger player, a stronger person, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. I mean, what a wonderful lesson you just taught right there. And to think like your son didn't win a match for 9 months. I mean, I can't wait to meet him, and that's, I mean, but he's gonna be able to use that time as a resource in business, in life, and he's gonna have people he works with that struggle. He's gonna have he may have a special need child one time. He may be blessed with that. He may but to have gone through hard in sport, there is such a valuable tool. We go through hard in other things that are more difficult than sport too, right? But we know that life doesn't get easier. We get better at dealing with life. Right?
I love that.
It doesn't get easier. And so for my college students that I love on, that I work hard at being patient on, I mean, when they're losing in tennis, it's difficult. This is what they've wanted to do for a long, long time. But I also know, we're preparing you for life, right? And it's probably going to get harder than life's going to get harder after college than it is in college, right? I know your son's living in another country right now. I mean, he's in a wonderful place, but it's probably lonely at times, and it's hard at times, but he's done hard before, right?
Right.
So
right.
he's we get more resilient by being tested. And that's what so like all of my college players have been through hard times, and that's one of the things that's motivated me to write this book, Hard Comes First, is that all of my former players are successful, all of them, and yet they've all been through hard times, and that's the message I want to share is share for people who have gone through hard times. I've gone through hard times with my child, but I've gone through hard times in other things too. It's not just limited to that. But that's what makes life rich.
Right.
That's what makes life rich right there.
What motivated you or compelled you to start putting these thoughts and experiences actually down on paper? Well, maybe not down on paper, in your computer, to share with the rest of us, because there's a lot that has to happen for a book to actually get into a reader's hands, right? And the first thing that has to happen is you have to have the idea, but then you have to have the actual whatever that is to make you sit down and start capturing these ideas in a way that can be shared.
Right. So I mean, autism was really hard at a young age for my wife and for myself and for Cole and for Ashe. It was really hard. And here again, I think because it was so hard, it helped my tennis playing son. My family situation helped my tennis playing son to be resilient, to be in a lot of things. But we were pouring so much into Cole, and part of that I learned, like, I wasn't going to fix Cole. Cole, I wasn't going to change him. I wasn't going to fix him. And along the way, I learned that, wait a minute, really, I was the one who needed to change. And it helped me to become a better human being, which in turn helped me to become a better coach. But going through that difficult and coming out on the other side, okay. I feel like I have a message to share that way, that change is good. Growth is good. I think I was scared of that. As a young parent, right?
Right. Well, I can only imagine getting that diagnosis and, what's going through your mind of,
At least I
you
didn't even
know,
know what it was, right? I didn't
well,
even,
right. I mean,
right,
it wasn't something that was talked about 23 years ago or,
right,
20 years ago as much as it is now. But also just that realization that this fairy tale image that you have of what your family looks like is going to be different. And
right,
I love that you said that you realized you weren't going to fix him because he doesn't need fixing,
right.
right?
That's right.
It was that you and the rest of your family needed to, as you said, change and grow to
Yeah,
learn how to be in this situation that was different from the fairy tale in your
yeah,
mind.
that's right. And so when your tennis playing child is struggling, you at the time it hurts, but you don't know if it's good or bad,
Mm.
right?
Oh, it just
Um,
feels terrible.
it feels terrible. But
Yeah.
we part of our story this year is we had a player on our team go into cardiac arrest.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
we were at Duke, and Mark, we were at Duke in October, and he went into cardiac arrest and was resuscitated. No pulse, no heartbeat. Um,
Terrifying.
to be honest, I thought he died,
Hmm.
and so did everyone else there. He was at the right place at the right time, and he was resuscitated. But I'll never. So I spent 8 days with Mark in the Duke cardiac unit while his parents were trying to get to America, and they ran into some problems in trying to do that. Um, they had been in Iran earlier in the year, and so when they got to Paris, they couldn't get through with their visa
Mm.
to America because they'd been in Iran, and we had to jump through some hoops to get him to the U.S. But I never will forget the doctor who came in to see Mark. He said, "Mark, you're I can't tell you if you're ever going to play tennis again, but I can tell you that there's a reason you're alive, that most people, you shouldn't be here right now. What you've been through, there's less than 3% chance of surviving." And he said, I'm one of the best cardiologists in the world. And in my experience, people who've gone through what you've gone through have an incredible platform to present life from.
Hmm.
And,
What a
and
gift he gave that young
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was, and so that doctor sat with Mark and I in the hospital room for 30, 40 minutes or so. And he got up and left. And I said, Mark, I'll be right back. And I ran down the hall. "Excuse me, sir. That was the greatest coaching I've ever heard, And but that's when we go through struggle, we don't know if it's going to be good or bad at the time, right?
Mhm.
Um, we think it's only going to be bad.
Right.
But we know that hard times shape us, and sometimes they're very valuable later, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, I can't wait for your book to come out. So you had told me you think the book will be out sometime in 2024.
Yeah.
And so I just want the listeners to understand we will let y'all know when it's available. And
Well,
we'll have Rod back on to talk about it more in detail at
thank
that
you.
point.
Lisa, I'd love for people to, I have a website,
Mhm.
and if they could go, if anyone interested could go to hardcomesfirst.com and sign up. They'll get the first chapter and kind of be on my blog list, which I love.
Yeah. And we'll have a link in the show notes on
Oh, cool.
parentingaces.com as well. So make it easy for you guys to just click and sign up there. I want to touch on one more thing before we close up our chat here, Rod. And that is something, again, that you and I were talking about offline. And it's a question that has been coming up so much. And it's around college recruiting and ratings and rankings. And my kind of platform, my mantra, my soapbox has been, we've got to stop focusing so much on these ratings and rankings, that the good college coaches know to look beyond ratings and rankings. And if they're only focusing on ratings and rankings, you don't want your kid playing for that coach anyway.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about, and let me just back up. The response to that is typically, but yeah, if they're not at a certain level, they can't even get a response from the coach.
Mm.
Right. So we got to focus on it in some way, shape, or form. When you're going to these junior tournaments and looking at players to recruit to come play at Wofford, what are the things you're looking for?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, first of all, so a rating or a ranking, that is a snapshot of what's happened in the past. And that's it, right? It doesn't tell us anything about what's happening in the future. So, I mean, recruiting, I'm not unlike other college coaches. We spend a lot of time recruiting. I mean, we're looking for players, right?
Mhm.
So, if I get word, well, there's a reason that somebody's such and such. I mean, that's fantastic, right? But it only here again, it's only about the past, right? I don't really care about the past, right? I mean, your son struggled in the 14s or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't know that, right? As a college coach, I'm looking for, like, do they love tennis? Do they going to be a great teammate? I'm like, are they going to make our joint experience better? I mean, obviously we have to win. We want people who are going to be good players, but if you're a mediocre player today, can you be a good player 2 years from now? Of course you can.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, 2 years. I mean, I coach men. So let's say a 17-year-old to a 19-year-old, is that person going to change? They're going to change a lot, right? I mean, they're going to change a lot. So, but they have to like tennis. I mean, I don't want to, I'm not going to recruit somebody who doesn't like tennis. I'm going to wish them well, but that's if they, I mean, that's going to be a big piece of it. But I do see people at junior tennis tournaments that I go, well, they don't look like they want to play college tennis.
Mm-hmm.
And they might not,
Right.
It's not for everybody.
Right. But when you say you're not going to recruit somebody that doesn't love tennis, what is it that about loving tennis that makes you want that person on your team?
Yeah.
And what would it be about somebody that doesn't love the game that would make you shy away from them? I mean, how's it gonna impact the experience of the team?
Oh God. So well, first of all, if you don't like something, you're probably not going to improve. Right? If you like something, you're more likely to you're going to want to do it more. You're going to want to do it in the summertime. You're going to look forward to coming to practice. You're going to look like I think we probably hit our prime about 30 years old.
Mm-hmm.
We certainly don't hit our prime at 22.
Right.
Okay. So if I'm looking at somebody they want their senior year to be their best year.
Yeah.
They don't want their sophomore year to be their best year. They want their senior year. So they really love it, whether they're going to be a pro player or not. Not the point. The point is they're going to go after this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I was at an academy the other day, and I went to see some guys practice, and I came away going, yeah, I found out what I needed to know. I already knew they were good players.
Yeah.
Right. But what I mean, UTR, it's fine. That's not what I went. I didn't go to learn about their UTR. I went to learn, like, I wanted to see them at practice, not at a tournament. I wanted to see them at practice.
Interesting.
I wanted to see them at practice. I wanted to see them interact with their friends. I wanted to see them interact with their coaches. I wanted to watch them practice.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean,
you want to see the energy level.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
The people that they check the box. Yes, I would like to be around these guys at practice, and I think they'd like to be around me. We don't get as many competitive opportunities as we get practice opportunities. Yes, I want to see them. I want to see them perform for sure, but I might see them perform and they might choke. They might, oh my gosh, the coach was there. I had so much pressure on me, or, well, that's normal. I'm not going to write them off because of that, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to be the first person to get nervous and play a bad match. Everybody's done that, right? And that they might outgrow that, and they can work through that, but that might impact their UTR.
Yeah.
But enthusiasm, right? Nothing great happens without enthusiasm. Ralph Waldo Emerson, nothing great happens without enthusiasm. And so, yeah, I mean, I think the players that I have on my current team, don't they want enthusiastic teammates?
Mhm. So you're looking out not just for your experience as the coach, but also your existing players who have spent the last 3 years with you. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to me what you're saying is you feel a responsibility to continue to bring in people to keep their experience positive as well.
You know, Lisa, I have 4 freshmen coming in this year. I mean,
Which is a lot.
it's a lot. I mean, it's going to
Yeah.
be fun, right? I'm going to have
Yeah.
I've got some returning players, and I've got 4 freshmen coming in. So that's an unusually large freshman class, but I'm looking forward to that. And this is, you know, we're still in the time when people have a 5th year, right?
Mhm.
A lot of people aren't recruiting freshmen.
Right.
You know, we don't have grad school at Wofford, where we specialize in 4-year experience, and that's all we have. So that's one reason I'm not recruiting grad students, because I don't have that option.
Mhm.
But I'm also recruiting freshmen because I want freshmen. I want that relationship. I want that. I'm not just bringing in somebody who's only going to contribute on match day.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Right?
love that. All right, parents, if you're watching this, listening to this, if you don't want your kid going to play for Coach Rod Ray at Wofford, I don't know what to say to you. I mean, you are such an amazing coach, an amazing human being. And I think, you know, your players are so lucky to have the opportunity to fall under your sphere of influence for the 4 years they're with you. And I'm just so grateful to you for reaching out and taking the time to come do this podcast with me and letting me learn about you as well. I feel like I have a new friend. So I'm just really excited to meet you and follow the Wofford journey this year, see how your freshmen fare over the next 9 months. And thank you so much for coming on.
Well, I've loved being with you. Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
To my listeners, thank you all so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time on Parenting Aces.